Pirates are abducting bigger groups of seafarers in the Gulf of Guinea these days.
There has been a clear surge in the number of seafarers kidnapped by pirates so far this year, according to multiple reports by international observers.
Now, the latest global piracy report by the ICC International Maritime Bureau shows a 40% increase in the number of kidnappings reported in the Gulf of Guinea.
And you cannot go to the river and go and fishing any longer again. So if you have any way to go there, you go and do piracy. If you die from there, well, it is the will of God, let it be. So joblessness leads to this sea piracy.
Hello, I'm Mubarak Kenya, and I'd like to introduce our new colleague, Ms. Ibrahim Abdi Karim.
Hello, I am happy to be with you in the program. In this show, we will take you to the Gulf of Guinea, where over 90% of global kidnappings take place.
And in the second part of our show, we'll delve into how the Anglo-American PLC has caused widespread lead poisoning in Zambia for decades. Stay with us.
Gulf of Guinea piracy. Piracy and armed robbery, crimes notoriously reminiscent of the Gulf of Guinea, bordering more than 3,700 miles of West African coast between Guinea and Angola. Pirates and armed robbers operate off at least 8 countries in the Gulf of Guinea: Nigeria, Benin, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, and Gabon.
We are currently working with it to transition production into those countries. And if Nigeria has a capability to manufacture specialized ribs, then the rest of the region should be supporting Nigeria in buying those vessels from Nigeria. And that way the region has the ability to establish a maritime ecostructure that'll feed off itself and work as one system.
The International Maritime Bureau sounded the alarm and called for international cooperation after tracking an unprecedented rise in kidnappings in the region in 2019, up to 50% from the previous year.
Piracy and criminality continue in this vast and strategically significant body of water, despite some international efforts to contain the pirates. The criminal tactics of pirates and armed robbers are also evolving.
We are now joined by Dr. Okafor Yarwood, a maritime safety and security expert with a regional focus on the Gulf of Guinea, to listen to her view on how piracy in the Gulf of Guinea has transformed.
It is now more like an organized crime whereby there are groups. Elites are actually also represented in the system that are able to do the negotiation, that have access to perhaps offshore accounts where the ransom is paid, and then they're able to communicate to a different group that is able to confirm that the ransom has been paid. And then they also have people that work in the communities that have access to navigation skills and can actually accommodate without sometimes raising suspicion of who the people they are holding, where this victims are usually kept. So it's currently, unfortunately, no longer just about economic marginalization, but it is now a full-blown business network that have different spheres and different categories of people involved.
Thanks for that, Dr. Okafor Yarwood, a maritime safety and security expert.
Oil tankers are often the targets of attacks, given the fact that the Gulf borders many African countries with sizable oil and gas industries. With the oil prices crashing in 2014, the pirates have shifted their tactics and preferred to kidnap seafarers for ransom instead of getting engaged in a complicated operation to steal oil. The shipping company or the hostages' families will have to pay ransom for the victims to be released. But the abducted captain, first mate, or chief engineer are not the only victims in this crime. Coastal communities suffer the dire consequences of piracy, and the most vulnerable sectors of the society are trapped in a cycle of crime and poverty.
The environment has also been polluted and degraded to the point that people, fishers, farmers that would usually make their living from farming or from fishing are no longer able to do so due to the level of pollution in the region. So, for example, the extensiveness of oil pollution in the Niger Delta, one of the highest or most polluted regions in the world, or deltas in the world, is such that about 40% of the mangrove is oiled. And in the case of selected communities across the region, there are people that depend on, say, catching periwinkles, women primarily, from the mangroves that are no longer able to do that because of oil destruction.
The opportunistic criminal groups are motivated by profit and not politics. It's worth mentioning that the influx of multinational oil companies and the efforts to disrupt their exploitation of Nigerian oil has had its role to play in the creation of culture of piracy.
Now today, piracy goes beyond Nigeria to areas of the coast of Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and the emerging hotspots of Togo and Benin.
Our radar system and our lookouts, we have potential to see any threats that are approaching us, and miles out. So before any piracy issue would take place, we will have notification well in advance.
Now there are concerns that terrorist organizations such as Boko Haram or the Takfiri Daesh West African province could use the tactics employed by the pirates to pursue their extremist agenda.
After all, on the other side of the continent, Somali pirates have been accused of smuggling weapons and cargo for terrorists.
However, in 2013, regional heads of state of 25 Western Central African countries came together in Yaoundé, and they were able to agree and sign make an agreement around 3 strategic documents. They had a memorandum of understanding, they had the Yaoundé Code of Conduct, and also a political declaration that centers around issue of addressing holistically issues of maritime insecurity in the region. So I think it has gone beyond relying on colonial powers.
Piracy in the region also has a harsh impact on the environment. As pirates hastily load oil onto small and rudimentary vessels, spills could contaminate the Gulf, hurting fishing and other sources of food and livelihood. There are also concerns that the contamination could reach freshwater sources for drinking and farming. Yet piracy does not look like it is on the path to leave the region.
Last year, how many attacks did you do?
Last year, of course, I struck no less than 15 attacks because we have nowhere to start from. Sometimes we hijack the ships to get money.
Usually, how much is it to release a ship?
Depends on the ship. We can even say 200 million, bring 900 million for.
And when you keep the member of the crews, you keep them on the ship, on the boat, or you...
So I've tried for you.
With the Gulf being unsafe, critical industries like fishing and tourism cannot thrive, leading to economic repercussions on the local populations. Cancer and asthma are also among the long-term health complications in such an environment. With the governments bringing in less revenue, the cost of living goes higher, causing more poverty and potentially more crime.
I think that some of the key reasons why the threat, and of course other illicit threats, is present in the region is primarily due to, you could say, economic hardship. You could say due to a sense of economic and political exclusion and economic marginalization, when people feel that they are sitting in the midst of plenty, but they are not necessarily benefiting from what is the resources that has been extracted from their region. And so it all began as a way of, all these things resulted in what I would call animosity against the state.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic has appeared, the situation has exacerbated in the Gulf. The rise in piracy attacks appears to correlate with the spread of the virus in January until global disconfinement in June.
Now, the rise in attacks is explained by the freezing activities on the docks due to quarantining and a sharp decrease in income for already fragile shore populations.
What do you think about people doing maritime piracy? What is your opinion about this?
It's due to joblessness. After your years in school, going back home now, you don't have any work to do. What do you think will come to your mind? And you cannot go to the river and go and fishing any longer again. So if you have any way to go there, you go and do piracy. If you die from there, well, it is the will of God, let it be. So joblessness leads to this piracy.
Lack of resilience in the infrastructure of port security and a diminished ability to react to unexpected events like the spread of COVID-19 are among the factors increasing piracy.
So what should regional states do?
They should ensure that as they explore oil, for example, they should keep in mind that oil is not the only marine resources. They should take advantage of the potential the potential of developing coastal tourism, for instance, investing in the fisheries sector, investing and ensuring that the collaboration and the cooperation that they are really putting so much effort on and emphasis sometimes on piracy and armed robbery at sea is also extended to issues of illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, because actually that also poses a very significant threat to the livelihood of the people.
Now, thanks a lot for that, Dr. Okafuri Arwood, maritime security and safety expert, and we're all looking forward to an end of piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. And now it's that time in our program where we bring you a collection of news and events from across Africa. What do you have today for us, Ekram?
Thank you, Henia. Today we've got 6 different news from different parts of Africa. And now, on to the first one. The Iranian documentary, No Place for Angels, won the Safinaz Foundation Special Award at the Kenya Film Festival. The documentary, No Place for Angels, directed by Sam Kalantari and produced by Hamed Shakibania and Mohsin Shah Mohammed Mirab, won the Special Award of the Safinaz Foundation. Ethiopia's Tigray crisis. Rocket hit outskirts of Eritrea's capital. The leader of Ethiopia's Tigray region has confirmed the firing of missiles at neighboring Eritrea's capital and is threatening many more, marking a huge escalation as the deadly fighting in the northern Ethiopia between regional forces and the federal government now spills over an international border. Trove of a sarcophagi unearthed in Egypt. More than 100 intact sarcophagi have been unearthed near Cairo, dating back more than 2,500 years. The latest finding comes just over a month after the archaeologists in the area found 59 other well-preserved and sealed wooden coffins. Algeria's approved new constitution after referendum. Algerians have approved constitutional reforms in the referendum, though with a record low turnout, the country's Constitutional Council has announced. The referendum held on November 1st was widely seen as the government's maneuver to neutralize the Hirak protest movement, which had called for a boycott of the plebiscite. Racism and propaganda. Africans in China complain of discrimination in the time of COVID. Africans in China have complained of harassment, discrimination, and even eviction while being accused of carrying the coronavirus since early April. Now, on to Kenya. Kenya named Africa's top tourist destination in 2020. Kenya is Africa's 2020 leading tourist destination. This is according to the World Travel Association, which made the announcement during the inaugural African Winners' Day. In the World Travel Awards, which were also presented, Kenya Tourism Board was named the best tourism board in the continent. That is it for today. Please stay tuned for more.
Anglo-poisoning of Zambians.
Widespread lead poisoning from a mine operated by a London-based multinational mining company has recently attracted attention after illegal action by Zambians.
Anglo-American PLC is being sued in a court in South Africa for its operation of the mine in the northern Zambian city of Kabwe from 1925 to 1974. The remnants of the mine are still poisoning many today.
When we come for work, we protect ourselves by putting our home attires in bags or plastics and then wear work clothes. We leave our work clothes here and bath and then change into clothes which we go home in. We also drink milk as a protective measure after work.
Now, A group of Zambian women and children have filed a suit to seek justice for generations of children poisoned by widespread lead contamination from the Kabwe mine in the soil, dust, water, and vegetation.
Represented by 13 plaintiffs in the Johannesburg court, around 100,000 people are demanding not just compensation, but also a cleanup of the area.
One question would be, how did Anglo operate that led to such a disaster? We have Mr. Abayomi Azikwe, the editor of the Pan-African Newswire and the co-founder of the Michigan Emergency Committee Against War and Injustice. We ask him to tell us more on that.
The system was designed to extract as much natural resources from Zambia, which was formerly known as Northern Rhodesia, and to pay the African workers slave wages. They did not care about the health and safety of the people there. And it's quite interesting now, since the independence of South Africa and the ANC has come to power, that Anglo-American no longer has its headquarters in Johannesburg. They moved to London right after the ANC took power.
Today, more than 76,000 people live in lead-contaminated areas of Kabwe, amounting to 2/3 of the population there.
Originally known as Broken Hill, the mine became a source of poisonous lead leaking from its smelter, ore processing, and tailing dams.
Now we are joined by Mr. Caravanos. Sir, you've been to Kabwe. How serious is the situation there?
Well, I've been to dozens of toxic places on the planet in many, many countries. And Kabwe stands out for a number of reasons. One is the extent of contamination. The soil level is contaminated with lead from historic mining at very, very high levels. But that's not enough. The second issue is the people living there are readily involved with lead in the sense that they're always touching it, living on top of it, breathing it. So we have very high exposure. We measured lead in soil. We measured lead in blood of the children. We also tested some pilot remediations, meaning solutions. What's a fast, cost-effective way to fix the problem? And we did find very, very high levels of lead. For example, lead in soil is commonly measured, and the unit is 400 parts per million. Well, we measured lead in soil right in people's front yard of their homes at levels of 4,000 and 10,000 parts per million.
Lead leak into the local environment was caused due to deficiencies in the design and systems of operation and control of. The multinational company is to blame for 2/3 of the contamination in the area about 60 miles north of the Zambian capital, Lusaka. The world's biggest lead operation did not come to an end until 1994, 20 years after Zambia nationalized lead mining. But what did the government do in the face of such aggression?
Well, they did take action, but it was not adequate. They were faced with an inherited socioeconomic situation in the entire region of Southern Africa. It's important to understand that South Africa, which was a settler, colonial, imperialist system.
I'm a little disappointed in all my travels there and discussions with the ministries that the government hasn't taken a more active role in investigating the harmful effects of lead. It could be that the government is overwhelmed with other issues of health and healthcare and a variety of issues that affect low and middle income countries. But I'm sometimes disappointed that the government of Zambia is not working more to either move these people out of the contaminated zone or to offer some remediations.
Anglo did nothing, although it was pretty well aware of the risks of lead pollution from the mine and the measures that were required to prevent and address it. Living in lead-contaminated areas has its hazards for the local communities, such as infertility, brain damage, and in some cases, death. Here's a father recounting how his child is dealing with disability to learn due to lead poisoning.
We started seeing changes in her behavior, especially in learning. At school, she started becoming naughty, not listening to us, very dull to school, and many other things.
When we come for work, we protect ourselves by putting our home attires in bags or plastics and then wear work clothes. We leave our work clothes here and bath and then change into clothes which we go home in. We also drink milk as a protective measure after work.
The lead pollution is in the soil, where children play and 2-year-olds have the highest level of lead in their blood.
Some young children even have levels more than 20 times higher than the U.S. threshold.
This is while there is no level of lead exposure that is known to be harmful without effects.
It's the world capitalist system that is responsible. They did not take into consideration the health and well-being of the masses of people who lived in these areas, who worked for these large multinational corporations. And it's not just in Africa. We have the same problem in the United States. Lead poisoning, particularly among children, is a major health hazard in many urban areas throughout the United States.
Anglo American has stated that it will defend its position vigorously in the court. This is while its human rights policy headline states that where we have caused or contributed to adverse human rights impacts, we will contribute to their remediation as appropriate. So how will the lawsuit go, and what can be done to save the region?
Yes, it's my judgment that it's virtually impossible to say that the owners and the operators of the mine had no idea this was such a dangerous material. Again, we're talking 1960s, 70s, 80s. Lead is very well established. So it's, I think, a little silly to think that we didn't know that this was a dangerous material and that we didn't know what we were doing was harming people. So I think that's extremely naive. And I think maybe the lawsuit and the subsequent court investigation will come to that conclusion.
This is not the first time the multinational is being sued in Africa.
In 2018, Anglo and 5 other companies paid about $390 million to settle a class action by former gold miners suffering from the respiratory disease silicosis.
Now today, Anglo American PLC is based in the UK, but the lawsuit was filed in South Africa because of the time of the mine's operation. It was headquartered in Johannesburg.
According to the class action lawsuit, Anglo had a duty of care to protect existing and future generations of residents of Kabwe, and it is liable for sustainable emissions of lead into the local environment. The 13 representative plaintiffs include children with very high blood lead levels.
Previous studies have indicated that we have a number of children whose blood lead levels are higher than 10 micrograms per deciliter, and 10 micrograms per deciliter is a World Health Organization standards that is anticipated. At least if it is below, then at least you know that the children and the adults going to be in a healthy environment.
And that wraps it up for this week's edition of Africa Today.
Please note that your thoughts and comments are always welcome.
Till we come back again, it's goodbye from me, Mubarak Kenya.
And goodbye from me, Ikram Ibrahim, and the entire team.